Welcome to the meeting point on Delta Television. My name is Michael Ikog. Today we'll be looking at the topic, physical planning and the uncoordinated nature of human settlements. We have in the studio two professionals in the field of planning. We have the National President of the Nigerian Institute of Town Planners, Town Planner Olutoyin Ayinde.
Good evening,
You're welcome,
presenter. Good evening, viewers.
It's my pleasure. We also have in the studio Town Planner Professor Arthur Essaghan. He is the chairman, Nigerian Institute of Town Planners, Delta State Chapter. Prof, you're welcome.
Thank you so very much, presenter. Good evening, viewers. I'm so delighted to be here.
National President, let me first of all welcome you to Delta State.
Thank you very much.
Can you briefly tell us what brought you to Delta?
My visit to Delta State is part of a grand plan to visit states in Nigeria. When I became president, I thought to develop or lay down a new template for leadership, because being a president of an institute imposes the responsibility of leadership. And one of the things I discovered was that the leadership was actually far from the lead. And I thought that instead of an average member seeing his president only once or twice in a year and from a very great distance, that it will do well for the president to visit the state chapters, see how they are faring, see whether they are adding value to their states, because that's the reason why they are there. Then look into the challenges they might have in doing their work, and at the same time assess the state of physical planning in that state with a view to advising the people, the government and people of every state. Delta State is the 26th state that I'll be visiting since they started in March last year.
Okay. Many people may not understand what your organization does, and that will lead me to asking, what is physical planning, urban and regional planning?
Okay, I think I will reel out some terms so that people will know how connected they are. What we've been used to in Nigeria is town planning. Town planning, we call it town planning generally. But you also hear about urban planning, and then you hear about urban and regional planning. You can also hear about community and regional planning. They are all the same thing. It just depends on the country that you studied. Because Nigeria was colonized by Britain, we adopted the name town planning. But as Nigerians began to go into other foreign countries like United States of America, Australia, Canada, they began to come back with qualifications like degree in urban planning, degree in city and regional planning, community and regional planning. They're the same thing. What the profession essentially is about is planning the present and future of human settlements. I'm using human settlements now so that you won't be asking, is it only towns you plan? Don't you plan villages? So human settlements include villages, towns, cities, mega cities. So the profession of urban planning is the profession that has to do with the planning of our cities. It's comparable to the medical profession. The medical profession deals with the wellness of human bodies. The urban planning profession deals with the wellness of human settlements. As a matter of fact, part of our training, part of the definitions of a town is that it's a living organism. It has an origin, it experiences growth, it can decline, and it can die. Some cities have died in history, and there are some that have shrunk just based on how human policies have affected them. So like a human body has a system. It it's run on system. You have circulatory system, you have excretory system, you have digestive system, and so on. So is the human settlement. There is the circulatory system in a city. That's the road network. There is digestive system, how you deal with your wastes. There's ejection and all of that. So there's respiratory system, the open spaces that allows the city to breathe, and so on and so forth. So our work is essentially concerned with how human settlements, how our cities are properly organized. But the problem we have in Nigeria is that people do not understand that profession. So what they associate our profession with is building plan approval. They think building plan approval is town planning, but that's exactly what is not town planning, because town planning goes beyond just building plan approval. Building plan approval is a downstream pedestrian product of town planning. So if you have not done town planning, if you have not planned a city, you cannot be talking of building plan approval. So essentially, that's what our profession is about.
Okay, if this is what you do, why is there uncoordinated physical development in most cities in Nigeria today? I think I'll take it to Prof.
Okay.
So that I don't bore you with
it's all right, but that's what I'm saying.
Yes.
It's all right.
Thank you so very much. I think the problem is just, when you put the cart before the horse, the horse has to be before the cart to pull the cart. There is uncoordinated cities, or what we call hazard development, because we left the first thing first, and we left the first thing to do the second thing. And what is the first thing? The first thing is to vision, is to plan, is to have a vision of how you want your settlements to be, how you want your city to be, how you want your country to be before you develop. But in Nigeria, there's no vision. There is no plan. A plan is a set of policies that are put together to guide the development of a particular area. It can be a town, it can be a neighborhood, it can be a city, it can be a region, it can even be a nation. And that is why we have what we call national fiscal development. We have regional development at the state level. And we have what we call master plans at the city level. And even at the neighborhood level, we have what we call neighborhood planning, what we call district planning. So it depends on the level, of focus, depending on the focus, depending on the level of aggregation. The problem is that instead of planning, having a plan, having a blueprint that will guide your development, we develop first before we plan. So we are putting the cart before the horse. So that is the basic problem. I don't know whether you understood what I'm trying to say. The point is that you're supposed to have a plan to guide development. You're supposed to have a plan to direct development. And I want to make this illustration. A vehicle is a means of transportation. If you get a good driver who can use a vehicle, it can take you to different places. It can add so much value to your life. But if you give that same vehicle to somebody who does not know how to drive, it can kill and can cause so much harm. It can kill, can have accidents, can even, cause traffic obstruction, and it become a weapon. They can weaponize it for evil. So planning is a vehicle for taking a community from where they are now to where they want to be in 10 years' time, in 15 years' time, in 20 years' time. And that cannot be possible except you have a blueprint. So planning as a process, and by definition, is community coming together to set out the things they want to do, how the community must develop, the roads to build, the schools to build, the religious centers, the worship centers to build, even to markets to build. And they agree on those broad principles, those broad policies, those broad plans and goals and set targets. And then they said, in 2 years' time, we'll do this. In 3 years' time, we'll do this. When this happens, we'll do this. And it is set out. So a plan is supposed to be made of 2 components: drawings, graphical illustrations of what you want to achieve, and then the written reports that set out the principles, the benchmarks, and the standards for achieving that.
If that is what it is, and why, on whose table should planning be initiated?
Thank you very much for. Is it for the president or for myself?
Let me get my question.
Okay. We operate in societies. Don't forget, how do human settlements get formed? How do societies get formed? They start with an individual. A man gets a wife. They have children. They are multiplying. Another family joins them. Another family joins them. They begin to grow. By the time they grow, they become populous, such that they need some things in common in that society. Now, everybody cannot begin to take that decision. They have representatives. Just like in Nigeria, we want to take decisions for our country, but not all of us are in Abuja. We have representatives. So those representatives, which we now call government, it's in government that some of these decisions reside. Why? Government is the one that possesses what is called the power of eminent domain. It's the government that has capacity to say, oh, the whole of Asaba is acquired for overriding public interest. And that power that gives it authority to do so also imposes the responsibility to prescribe how that place will grow. So government has responsibility to plan, but town planners have the duty to help government to produce that plan. I will explain. Every government should have a vision. Where is this place going in the next 50 years? I'm sure you are conversant with the story of Dubai. The Dubai prince said, this is where we want Dubai to be in 50 years' time. And then a plan followed. Plans are always answers to a vision. Where there is no vision, there cannot be planning. It's like you going out of your house in the morning and going to the garage. And there are vehicles going to different places, going to Agbo, going to Sapele, going to Wari, and they ask you, where are you going? You say anywhere. Then you can take any vehicle. So, do you know why we have uncoordinated human settlements? It's because we have taken decision that, oh, we can develop anyhow. We didn't say we will develop anyhow, but, you know, not deciding where we want to be is also a decision. So government has to take the lead. Government has to fund that vision, that plan, and government has to implement that plan. So there are stages. When vision precedes, the plan comes to define how to move from your present location to the fulfillment of that vision. It's paid for. And then when that plan is prepared, for as long as that plan is on the shelf and it's not implemented, it remains a plan. It's like you asking an architect to design design a house for you. If you keep that plan on the shelf for 10 years, it remains there until the day that you begin to develop according to the plan, will you have a house. So what we have had in many cases is that we don't even have visions that require certain plans for. And where you want to plan, the government is not funding. And there are places where you have had plans and government refuses to implement. For example, in the whole of Delta State, Warri is the only city that had a plan. I say had because it was done years ago, about 2001 I think.
Yes.
It was not implemented. And right now, the population in 2001 is different from the population now. And it lends credence to one of the things we said, that the city, the human settlement system, is a living organism. Like a human being grows, and as you grow, you need to change your wardrobe. I'm sure that you cannot put on the underpants that you wore 30 years ago. Anyway, it's not possible. So
it will never last up to 30 years.
As you grow, you adjust. It's the same thing. So when you plan, you adjust. So in the planning system, there's room for review, because there are decisions you took when the dynamics were different. As we grow, tastes change. A few years ago, before I joined government, there was no WhatsApp. I worked with the federal government as Commissioner for Fiscal Plan. In 2011, before I joined government, the phone that was ringing there was Nokia E7. I remember. Apple phone was not there yet. But towards the end of 2011, iPhone 4 was already ringing. So tastes change. As tastes change, the things you need begin to change. Things happen. COVID happened. The need for physical offices began to disappear. So all of those things will make you change. But if you are not looking at the plan to review, what have we achieved? How did we achieve it? What have we not achieved? Why did we not achieve it? And make adjustments. You remain static. And life is not static. So it is the inability to understand these dynamics and to follow them. That's why we have.
So I'll take this question back to the chairman of Delta State planning. When your president was speaking, he said it's only one that has a plan in Delta State. Are you saying that Essaghan does not have a plan?
No, Essaghan does not have a plan.
As we speak?
Yes.
Then what is your body doing to ensure that you produce a plan for?
Let me provide some context to that answer. When we were in Bender State at that time, Bender State prepared what we call a regional plan, regional development plan. And then under Bender State, they had a Benin master plan. They had a flood control master plan, a flood control plan, a master plan, of course, for flood control.
In Benin?
Yes, in Benin at that time, because it was a state capital, and flooding was a very serious problem. Then, after Benin, the largest city after Benin then was Warri. So the focus was also on Warri. But again, you also know that in terms of development, in terms of growth and development, Sapele predated Warri. Sapele was more popular. It was the economic nerve center in the south, as at that time, in the 60s, early 70s. And then the discovery of oil and commercial exploitation of oil. And then all those wells in Warri and all the oil infrastructures and facilities, of course, attracted people to Warri. So it was only rational at that time that they prepared a master plan for Warri. But that does not mean there was no master plan for Asaba. While the master plan of Warri was ongoing, they awarded a master plan for Asaba. I'm lucky that one of the first person, the first firm that got the master plan for Asaba was my lecturer, Isitro Odobi. He got the master plan when Dr. Edozie was the deputy governor. You remember Edozie at that time was deputy governor. Somehow, he only prepared what we call the concept, because when you want to build a house, you want to bring out the concept of the house, of the plan. He prepared a concept. The concept was approved in principle. Then before the real contract would be awarded, that government left office. Subsequently, the contract was also awarded to another person. The contract of Asaba, the master plan of Asaba. That was, I think that should be the early 90s, or yes, late 80s, 86, 86, 87, 88 to early 90s. The contract was awarded for the master plan of Asaba. Unfortunately, the man died.
The period we're talking now is during Bender State.
No, we're not talking about Bender State. We're talking about Delta.
You said 80.
I said in the 70s, in the
So
yes, we're bended.
So we get to data.
Yes, of course. Yeah, 1991.
So let's look at
1991. Yes, 1991. It was awarded. Isitro Odobi was my lecturer. Taught me in 1988 and 89. Then the contract was awarded 1999, 2000. Somehow the contract was not fully executed. It was re-awarded thereafter. And the man that he was awarded to also died. And since then, the process has not been activated.
Okay. Have you tried to reawaken the consciousness of government?
Of course.
Yes,
Of course. You asked the question, say, what has the Institute been doing in Delta State? I want to tell you that the Institute has been very up and doing in town planning advocacy, to in the government circle, and even in the lawyer society. Delta State has been privileged to have two urban regional planning laws, since the inception of the civilian administration, democracy in 1999. We had, among all the states, there's one called the urban regional planning law, Decree 88 of 1992, that was promulgated at the federal level. States were required to domesticate that law. I think in the whole country, Delta State was the first state to domesticate that law in 1995. We were the first state to domesticate that law. Somehow, the law was not fully implemented because of inconsistencies, because of issues, procedural issues. The government also, because of the activities of the Institute, the government also brought a new law last year, early this year, the new urban regional planning law. So the Institute has been up and doing. The Institute has been at the forefront. The Institute has been playing the advocacy role very, very effectively, and that is why government consciousness about planning is growing over the years. And I can tell you that in terms of consciousness, in terms of government commitment to planning, I think Delta State is doing. I think it's not lagging.
Maybe we'll get to that again as we progress in this discussion.
Yes.
If your responsibility is to plan, does
our duty?
Your duty is to plan.
Yes.
To initiate it.
Yes.
So the issue now is: do you anticipate population explosion in planning?
Okay, it was one of those things I mentioned. Planning is not possible without data, because plans are about man and his environment. Those are the two dominant subjects: man, the environment. Because man depends on the environment, you must not develop in a way that you destroy your environment so that it can sustain man. That's one principle of planning. The second principle of planning is sustainability. In fact, sustainability is a new word. I tell people that every time UN revises all this, they bring you terminologies that we learned in school. When I started planning school in 1976, we were told that what you are planning now is for generations yet unborn. That's sustainability.
Yes.
So, and that means you consider populations. And that is why review is necessary. I talked about review. Part of what you review is the population. In 1977, Ikorodu Road in Lagos State was built. Before then, it was a 2-lane road. Now, in 1977, it became a 10-lane road. Lagos was less than 4 million people. Today, Lagos is over 20 million people. I'm sure you know that road is not serving anymore. If you go to Lagos, you know it's not serving. So Lagos is looking at other modes of transport. If the military junta had not terminated the metro line in 1983, Lagos would have had a metro line running along Ikorodu Road as another complement to Ikorodu Road itself. So population is very important, and that's why for us as town planners, we need the census of Nigeria. We have been talking about population because no man is able to cater for his house if he doesn't know how many people are in his family. You deal with your family. Your resources are distributed based on the size of your family. So one of the challenges we have in Nigeria is that we've been working with population projections. We don't really know exactly how many we are. So population projections say we are over 220 million right now. So, but we need exact figures. But truth is that that figure also grows. So as you are planning now, you know that it's increasing. And that's one of the compelling reasons for planning actually, because we are growing in population, but our land is not growing. It's the same land. In 1971, in social studies, I was told that Nigeria was 56 million in 1971. So we're still in the same Nigeria. This is 2022, 51 years after 1971. But Nigeria is now 220 million plus, minus Bakassi. So it means we have less land and more people. So when you have a fixed resource and a large population, how do you survive? How do you manage it? You plan it. That's the way it is done. In places like Singapore, many years ago, Singapore had a policy. And the policy was that no Singaporean must be homeless. And then they were developing, like us, building bungalows. But they realized that their country was small. There was no way that they would be able to provide housing for everyone if they were building bungalows. What did they do? They collapsed those bungalows, and in their place, they built 10-floor buildings, 10 stories. As a matter of fact, when they first did that, they did not have, their economy was not good enough for them to be able to put elevators in those 10-floor buildings. So if you lived on the 10th floor and you are coming with a luggage, you practically had to go through the stairs. But as the economy improved, they began to install elevators. My first visit to Singapore was in 2010, and we were taken to a project, and from that project they were pointing to the last set of the 10th floor buildings that had not been demolished. Other 10th floor buildings, blocks before those ones, had been demolished, and in their place they had put up 30, 40, 50 floors of buildings. Why? They needed to accommodate more people because their population was growing, because they had a limited amount of land. So it's the same thing in Nigeria. In fact, Nigeria is developing without taking inventory of how much land have we developed. We're not matching the intercommunal clashes that we're having. We're not relating it with the limited land that we have. The communities that are fighting over land now did not fight over land 100 years ago, did not fight over land 50 years ago. But the population of every community is increasing, and people are building on their own. So they are spreading on agric land, spreading on land for forestry, spreading on land for conservation. Because a nation is also not supposed to finish all its land, develop all its land. There is land that is supposed to be conserved. So all of these are the things that are needed. Data on our land, data on our population, data on our resources. That's what comes in as factors that are considered in planning.
Okay. We talked about the recently passed not planning law.
Yes.
What's the assessment about that law?
Yeah, every law, there's no law that is perfect. And that is why constitutions, even the Nigerian constitution, is being reviewed. Even in America, they've put in they've had about 278 years now of democracy. They still tinker with certain aspects of their policy, even the constitution. Why the Urban Nigerian Planning Law was not what we want, we didn't get what we expected. But that is natural. Why? Because there are contending interests. As long as many professionals are involved, as long as there are so many interests in the society, every interest wants to get a hold and get a benefit, get a value from that law. So So what comes is a little of your interest, a little of Mr. A interest, a little of Mr. B interest. And that's what we call the public interest. The law has some internal contradictions and the government has recognized that. And the process of review, I think, is ongoing.
The
recent one that was passed. Of course, maybe you should not take it like that. Why? Because of our system. You understand? Some laws take years because of the range of interests, because of the diversity of interests that are brought to bear on that process. And of course, in Nigeria, because of our military background, because of our military heritage, we do everything very, 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 want to complete everything as soon as possible. I'm not saying that the law took some years to incubate and to bring forth. But sooner than later, we realize that we also need to tinker with certain aspects of the law to make it very functional. And that process is ongoing, and we are very glad about it. And again, today is as a result of advocacy of the Institute, and because of advocacy of those who are in charge.
Okay, I'll take this question back to you.
Yes.
Will you say that that physical planning is thriving in Delta State?
No, it's not thriving yet. Why? Because we don't have regional plans, what we call regional development plans. We don't have master plans. We don't have sector plans. We don't have even district plans. We don't have neighborhood plans. Neighborhood plans are plans, when we say plan, plan proposals, set of decisions that will guide the development of a particular neighborhood. A neighborhood is a sociological term. Sociological term is a neighborhood, is a term that is defined from social relationships, neighborliness, the ability to know who's around you, and then to offer what we call, neighboring services. That is a physical area that can take between 5,000 to 10,000 people, to 12,000 people, to 15,000 people, depending on the level of socioeconomic development of that nation. You need a plan. Just like the national president said, you need a vision. There should be an agreement of what we want in that community in the next 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, 50 years. And then have a plan. A plan, like I said, is a vehicle. It's value neutral. If you are driving a car, say because he's the national president, I will perform. Because he's somebody who's not the national president, will not perform. No. It's a vehicle that takes you from where you are. And from a problem situation to a solution situation. Why is it a solution situation? The vision of what you want to achieve in 20 years' time. It is only a planet that can take you. Why do you want to get a master? For example, you have your first degree. Why do you want to get a PhD? You want to get a PhD because you have a vision of what you want to live in the next 10 years, next 20 years, the type of life you want to live, the type of places you want to work, and the kind of values you want to add society. And then consistently, you follow it. And then you go on. So we don't have neighborhood plans. We don't have what we call district plans. We don't even have what we call sector plans. We don't have master plans to guide cities' growth. We don't have regional development plans to growth, to guide economic, to harness the economic potentials and population potentials of Delta State. So to that extent, it's not thriving.
It's not thriving. Okay.
Can I Now, I'm sure you've heard of layout before.
Yes.
A layout is a neighborhood plan. But a layout does not exist on its own. A layout is actually a section of a bigger plan, which is a district plan.
Like we have a Okumagba layout.
So that Okumagba layout is a section. It's not the whole town. No. So it must have a link with other sections of that size. So, and if for example in this layout, it's primary schools that are here, the same size as primary school. At a stage there will be secondary school. Where will it be? For one layout, it may not be able to sustain a secondary school. But by the when it becomes two layouts, they may be able to sustain. So that's the philosophy of plans, growing from bigger plans to the smaller plans. So it's like having this table, and you understand it more from the plastic ones. You know the plastic ones, you can disintegrate them and join them separately. That's how the thing is. So a state, for example, is supposed to start with a regional plan. A regional plan helps Governor Okowa to see the whole of his state, and he's seeing Essaghan. He's seeing how it connects with Warri, how Sapele is connected, how Agbo is connected, and things like so. He sees the relationship between every settlement. So when he wants to locate College of Education, you can say, okay, let it go to Northeast. College of Medicine, let it go to Northwest. College of Agriculture, let it come to Southwest. You know, College of Engineering, let it come to Southeast. But if it says College of Education, Central, College of Agri, Central, College of Medicine, Central, what will happen? Everybody will continue to move towards that center, and then there will be a heavy burden on that center, and there will be implosion. That's where you begin to see congestions. So, but when government starts with regional plan, and you locate all these things, those things that you locate will now enforce, they will enforce you building a connection with, because those services must be accessed. Yeah. If you put a school of medicine over there, people will go. See, the more they spread, the less congestion you have, because everybody is going in different ways, and you have balance. Yeah. So what does a plan do? A plan does balance for you. If you don't have a plan, you will have a tilt, and then you have congestion. So from that regional level, we will now have master plans for each city. Then that city is broken into different sectors. That sector is broken into different districts, and from that district you break into neighborhoods like Okumagba. That's how complex it is. But many people in government who are supposed to support this do not understand this sequence.
Okay. You were a commissioner in Lagos, commissioner of planning, also
physical planning and development. Yes.
Is there any experience you have really share with our people so that they can also help in their plan? Because I know that when they are campaigning for Tinubu, they say Tinubu is the one that initiated the plan that other governors are building in Lagos. Is that true?
Well, the truth is that Tinubu had a plan, but I must also say that he amplified some things that were in earlier plans. I'll give you an example, and that's why planning is very good. When Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu came, he started talking about 4th Mainland Bridge. And people say, oh, 4th Mainland Bridge. But the truth is that 4th Mainland Bridge is actually a component of a 1980 regional plan that was done when Jakonde was governor. But it was not given any noise. In that same 1980 plan, the Lekki airport was already there, but nobody gave vent to it. It was when Fashola came that we actually went to go and define and claim the site for that airport. Right now it has not been built, but the land is there. But that's the enigma of planning. In 1976, when I joined planning school, when we were doing we have what we call studio work. So you draw your plan, Lagos Metropolitan Master Plan. There was a particular road we were putting in dotted lines because it was proposed. We say proposed third axial expressway. That was 1976. I finished my ordinary diploma. I went back for higher diploma. 1979 to 81. The same road. Proposed third axial expressway. 1988. I went for postgraduate studies. Still studying Lagos. Proposed it. Was still proposed. 1990. Babangida constructed it. It's now what is called Third Mainland Bridge. So plans may be made for now, but the time of implementation is ahead. That's why, Habakkuk says, write the vision, make it plain. That's in the wrong. Who sees it? He said the vision is for an appointed time. It may tarry. Wait for it.
Okay.
So when you have a plan, wait. It's going to get fulfilled. But if you don't have a plan, there's nothing to wait for.
Okay, thank you. I think let's see if our viewer can contribute to this program. The number to call is on your screen there. 0812-106-9621. Another number is 0807-843-4277. You can copy the number from your screen and ensure that you ask questions that you need to ask or make contributions on how we can go forward in the development of our state, particularly the cities that are really evolving as we experiencing now. Let me ask, what are the challenges facing town planning
in Delta State? Is it in Delta State? Yes, yes.
Maybe after the president will take the next part of it. So let's get it. Hello.
Hello.
Yeah, good evening.
Yeah, this is Chinedu Tukuba from Asaba.
Okay, go ahead, Chinedu.
And I want to, actually, my question is to the national president. Because it talks about Nigeria working on census projections and there are no accurate figures. How does that one actually impact on our planning? Because we know if you have a general idea of how many Nigerians we have, that should guide you. Do you need exact numbers?
Okay, thank you. The national president will answer. Let's take this one. Okay, you have done that. So, President, should I go ahead? Second question is for you.
Okay. The truth is that when you work with projections, you are only guesstimating. You will not get the exact things you need. And then, in the middle of scarce resources, where you need to make the best, you will have been wasting resources because what you are working with are not exact.
Okay.
That's what it. That's
why
it's like me not knowing how many people I'm going to feed in my family. I say I'm working projection. Oh, maybe it's 20 people. You want to plan for a party? They are asking you how many people. The caterer wants to know how many people do you want to serve. Oh, I'm not sure. Maybe 500. And then you really have 200 people. So what's going to happen with the resources you use in producing the extra 300? So that's the essence of knowing your population. It's even a disgrace that we don't know how many we are.
Yes, I think also permit me to also contribute to what the national president just said. Population does not talk only about the absolute number. That is the volume, the size. There's also what's called the quality of the population. Let's go back to the illustration you gave. You are going to prepare food for maybe you have a party and it's for 500. And then the population, the one that is guessed, is 300. Even if you get the accurate figure of 500, you still need to know how many of them are diabetic, how many of them, what are their preferences for food,
okay.
The cost of those items, how the food has to be prepared so that they can take it, their age. There are so many indicators, there are so many qualitative indicators. And I want to illustrate this answer from the question I used to ask my students. And I asked them this question about 20 years ago. I asked them if a man has a wife, the man is a manager of a bank, and the wife is a manager of a bank, and they have only 2 sons. And then there's another man that has 4 wives, and each wife has 4 or 5 children. And then the population of that family, the size of that family is 25 or 22. And I asked them, if they are going to consume water, out of these 2 families, which of the family do you think will consume more water? On the average. The answer, ordinarily on the surface, you say, oh, it's the man with 20 people in the family, 20 persons in the family. But that is not true. The man that is a manager, that is rich, or maybe the husband is a politician and is very wealthy, an ex-senator or a senator, and the wife is a manager. The water the wife will use to take her bath in the morning, because of, he has the capacity, financial abilities. Of course, you know, when the rich wants to take their bath, they can fill the bathtub with water, pour liquid soup, warm, hot, and they will soak themselves. And after some time, they will empty that bathtub, put fresh water to rinse themselves. And I can show you that for a farmer, an illiterate, that has 4 wives and then maybe about 16 children, I can tell you that the water for just a bathtub will be enough for them to take their bath. The man that is a senator and the one that is a manager, they will have cars that they need to wash every morning. They have lawn that he has been to water. Do you understand that? Even in the kitchen, they will have so many things to wash at the same time. The mopping of the entire floor. So you discover that the amount of the unit, what we call the capita, water per capita consumption for the man, for the family of 4 persons will be far higher than the per capita water consumption for the poor person. Despite the fact that one has 20 persons in the family and the other person just has 4. So when we talk of population, it's not just sufficient to just talk of the size of the population, the quality of the population. And one thing is also very important, there's what we call population change. Population change after a time, over a time. So it is not, when I mean population change, we talk about the demographics, the sex, the marital status, the occupational status, the income status, even the age, mortality, you know, and all those things, birth rates. You need data on those aspects of the population for you to effectively plan.
I think the children, I want to believe that you are still with us, and I'm sure they are giving sufficient answer to your question. I know that your planning is backed by law, and certain times you see people flouting that law. Maybe this place is set up for school. You see individuals going there to organize the land and build their residential houses. Government can come and say, for public interest, we are taking this land, and also give it to individuals to build. What does the law say about it?
Yeah. Let me answer it the other way around. Let me describe the process of preparing a law. When the government has a vision, of course, leadership, leadership is about vision. A leader must have a vision. Perhaps he's the only person that sees the vision. So his duty to communicate, to share that vision with people, and then make people believe in that vision so that they can run with that vision to achieve that vision. When the governor has, or maybe for example government, not governor now, when government has a vision, he looks for technocrats to help him actualize that vision. So he prepares a master plan. The law is that when you prepare a master plan, you must send that master plan to a legislative house. Maybe House of Assembly, maybe local legislative assembly. Why do you need to send it there? You need to send it there so that they can make it into a law. The purpose of legislating on that law is to give you what we call police power to those who are going to enforce that plan. So first of all, you must have a plan. And then it must pass through the local legislative assembly or the state house of assembly or the national assembly to become a legal instrument backed by law. And then it gives you what we call police power. Anybody that is running with that plan has what we call police power. If you contravene everything, you can be arrested because there is a law. But the problem we have is that there is no plan. And even when we had those plans were not enacted, they were not adopted by the local legislative assembly or the state houses of assembly. So they are not legal instruments. So enforcement is very difficult. And that is why, that is the lacuna that government, that is the loophole that government.
Okay, some of these plans does not exist. What is the Ministry of Urban and Regional Planning doing? Because before you take your building plan to the appropriate authority to approve. And what are they approving if there is no plan for that particular area?
Okay, exactly. That's what we're saying. We're saying that the focus of government when it's pursuing just building plans is to raise IGR. And we say that town planning is not about IGRs. Town planning is to create order. It is not that you cannot generate IGR from it, but you must first create that order and have the basis to generate. So what is happening in many states, Delta inclusive, is that I just ask you to come and get approval. And the question is approval based on what? And that's what we want to stop. So you have only a few areas, pockets of areas where some layouts are prepared. But those layouts don't survive for long because they are not anchored. They are not within the context of any bigger plan. And that's why our environment is not balanced. So the building plan thing is not the way to go. It is right only if we have followed the due process.
So we say it's illegal for government to send this agency to go and collect revenue from those who are building without plan.
Let me say that it's because Nigerians are not testing a lot of government decisions in court. That's why some things are subsisting. If a lot of things are tested in court, government itself will run. So, and that's why we're trying to say that, it's better for government to establish the real process of planning, and everybody falls into it. Let me say something that may shock you. Our model of development in Nigeria is not sustainable. It's wrong. In Nigeria, we parcellate land to individuals. So we do the layout and parcellate to individuals. So when 1,000 people have accommodation problem, we allocate 1,000 plots to them. In the developed countries, I will say are developed, I will say are organized, they don't parcellate land to individuals. They parcellate land to corporations who build mass housing. There is a public housing policy that makes them build houses. So all you need is to access the house, not access land. And that way you can build 1,000 units on a few hectares of land, because each person will just have his apartment. Whereas in Nigeria, you build 1,000 units on a larger expanse of land. And our challenge, because individuals are building. When Prof is ready, I may not be ready. You may not be ready. But the other person there is ready. So he builds his house, he needs electricity. The pole stops here. But the other man too needs electricity. It's duty bound now to extend the cable from here to the other man's house. The gap between Prof's house and the other man's house is wasted. Yeah. So we're wasting resources. It doesn't happen like that in other places. So until we get the right model of development, we'll always be wasting resources or be wasting development.
Can I say something on that?
Yeah, go ahead.
Excuse me, just like what the National President just said, apart from wasting resources, when we get the right model, we even make more money. Getting the right model will even enable government to generate more IGR. How? The national president said, you said, building plan approval is what we call a tangential function. It's a very small aspect. In fact, that is, like you said, a product. It's at the tail end of the whole planning process. Building plan approval. And so it's a tangential function. It's not a main function of plan.
But that is what we see everywhere.
That is what we are seeing. That is why the model is wrong. Yes. That is the model.
The word harass.
Yes, harass. That is the model. The model must change. We should start it from the beginning. And it is cheaper, it is easier, and it's more reliable. The only thing government needs to do is to make sure that they lay down the rules and then back it with resources. There's no amount of money that government will invest in proper planning that it will not take back in less than 10-15 years. And everybody will be happy. Because you live in a beautiful environment, you live in an environment that is meaningful, you live in an environment that supports the growth of your children, the growth of the elderly, and so on and so forth. So everybody benefits. Everybody benefits.
Could it be that it is the financial implication that is why government is running away from planning? Because we know that for a place to properly plan, there must be water, there must be electricity, there must be road, there must be hospital, there must be market, and other facilities that will make for a healthy living. Could it be that it is the reason why government is shying away from proper planning?
Okay, first you have to understand that nothing goes for nothing. You can't produce value without cost. But the cost cannot be the deterrent, because it may look big, and it's like somebody who asked, how do you eat an elephant? You eat it little by little. And that's why even in planning, we have what we call phasing. So it might be a big project, but you can achieve it on gradual basis. That's one. Two is that there are more than one stakeholder in the development of human settlements. So it's not just government. We have the private sector.
So we
have the people.
Hello?
Once again.
Okay.
Yeah, I just want to find out, because I know that in the 60s and 70s, we used to see green spaces, you know. I live in PSC, there were areas that were marked for maybe for recreation and all those things. Even in Essaghan, there used to be some areas, you know.
The colonial people.
As we speak, it has virtually disappeared. Green spaces, open spaces. I do not know whether town planners are actually on government, making them to understand that these things help for the total health of a city. Thank you.
Okay, you were talking about green spaces. When there are no plans,
you know, well, let me say that Chukwuma is validating our advocacy, because this is the essence of our meeting with the government today, for example. This is the essence of saying we should have plans. The green spaces he is referring to was made by the colonial masters when they were here. They had plans. My problem with the colonial masters was that they dealt with only the areas where they lived.
okay.
They were planning only where they lived. They didn't plan where the people would live. And unfortunately, when we took over from them, we replaced them as the big man, and we're not looking at the rest of the community. But government is meant to serve the larger community. That's the message now. And it's the real reason why we're here. For people like Chukwuma, people like Chinedu, who called earlier, to know the truth. And so somebody is canvassing for their votes. They can ask him, are you going to have a plan for this? A politician says, I'm going to build 50 roads. Where's the plan? Because many times all those things are in the head. There's no plan. So, part of, you will recall that earlier I talked about conservation. Yeah. The area you conserve, there are green spaces. Forests. Our forests are meant to be preserved because they serve a purpose.
Is that part of planning?
Yes, the heart.
It is.
It's the heart.
It is. So all of these things are part of planning. The transportation system, how it works, how it networks with where the industry is. There's what we call compatibility. There are uses that you can't put together because they won't work well. There's complementarity, the ones that will add value to one another. All of these things have an interplay to bring out an efficient plan. And the green spaces, as mentioned, is part of it. So part of what we're saying is, let's plan. And in that plan, we'll have zoned area for open spaces. And when those plans are passed into law, they become sacrosanct.
Hello. Good evening. Your name and location, please. Okay. Go ahead, sir.
I want to find out something. Why is it that in every planning of the government, that some planners are not involved in planning activities, especially when it comes to planning of infrastructure and all that? If the president at least give us a elective.
Okay, thank you.
You see, generally speaking, many of those in government are not aware of the complexity of governance. Governance is not easy. I am not by any means saying I've been part of government before and I know the dynamics involved, how many things you have to do, how limited your resources are. But you know, why some governments don't even talk to town planners is that they think planning is just about building plan approval. They can't connect that building plan approval to the road system. They can't connect it to the industry. They can't connect it to market. They can't connect it to drainage. Because that's where it all begins. So, it's a matter of continuous enlightenment, which is what we are doing. So I can assure Monday that we're trying our best. We're using the media, we're using all forms to try and educate those in government, educate the people so that town planning may become more relevant.
Permit me to revisit the issue, the question you asked. Why is it that our governments are not planning? The national president, has mentioned two very important reasons, but there's one very important reason I also want to mention, just to add to that. One of the reasons is that our political culture, the norms, the values, the practices that drive our political process is such that it does not make for such organic planning. I don't know, maybe our English is too big. It does not make it easy.
You don't understand process.
It's process. You understand? It does not, because in other words, our leadership recruitment process, the way we recruit our leaders, the way even at the local government level, at the local legislative level, at the state level, is such that you will not get the persons that will have the capacity, that has the knowledge, that has the vision. The system is such that all these they eliminate them through the process. So that is one of the reasons.
Okay.
The second, okay, sorry.
The time is not on our side. But we find out ways to get us and or those in government, anyone. And
yes,
they will also do that.
Yes, Deltans is very important that we must understand that planning is very important. Planning is the bedrock of development. And I want to quote one of the best governors we had in this dispensation, the governor of Lagos State. He said, that urban and regional planning, what we call town planning, on one side, and economic planning on the other side, are the two most important activities that define civilization. Every human civilization, town planning and economic planning. So Deltans, we must begin to appreciate the fact that town planning is the bedrock of physical development.
So, National President, we can talk to Nigerians. She says you have spoken to Deltans.
Yeah, my message to Nigerians is that when you plan, you have order. When you do not plan, you have disorder. When you have order, it means you are organized. When you lack order, you will agonize. So it's either we choose between being organized or being agonized. I tell people that we either plan or we perish. There is no negotiation about plan. Planning is not negotiable. So it's not something that we have to go and think about. The more we plan, the better our lives will be.
Thank you very much. Again, has been the National President of the Nigerian Institute of Town Planners, Town Planner, Olutoyin Ayinde. I want to thank you for joining us in this episode of the Meeting Point.
It's a privilege.
We also have the Chairman, Nigerian Institute of Town Planners, Delta State Chapter, Town Planner, Professor Essaghan. I also want to thank you.
Thank you so much, my pleasure.
My name is Michael Ikogwu. Join us tomorrow for another episode of the Meeting Point.